Wife told me to sort it out myself when I asked her for financial help. During a difficult time, alright guys, get this. My wife, during a very difficult time for me, is telling me that I need to sort out my own issues. And this is because I'm in a financial crisis. I'm in debt, I need help solving this problem, and my wife doesn't want to help me financially. She says that we need to keep our finances separate, and I need to be a big boy. So okay, I guess I'll deal with this stressful situation by myself. But if I ever get a lot of money or something, and she thinks that she's going to be entitled to it, I'm going to let her know this exact moment what she said to me. I'm not the kind of person who usually posts about my personal details, but I feel like I've hit a wall and don't know where else to turn. I've always tried to manage my life responsibly, especially when it comes to my money. I know everyone says, well, the same thing and then spends money on frivolous things anywho, but I've never been that dude. I'm the guy who always sets aside savings on a schedule, budgets emergencies, and avoids splurging on unnecessary things, even if it's something really cool, and I could justify it 1,000 times over. I'm a financially responsible person. It's something I pride myself on because of how much hard work and discipline it takes to be this. Then this year came along and it completely upended all of that, and I'm struggling to figure out what to do next. Here's the situation. Earlier this year, my mother fell seriously ill. She's been diabetic for most of her life, but up until recently, she was managing it pretty well. Then everything spiraled out of control without a word of warning. And it's all been snowballing from there. Her health took a sudden turn for the worse, and she ends up in the hospital with complications that nobody could have prepared for. As her only child, I was the one who had to step in and take care of everything. I don't resent looking after her. She's my mother and I love her, but sorting everything out, well, was a continuous headache. The first shock came when I realized her insurance situation was far worse than I thought. Because of her diabetes and some gaps in her employment history, she had not been able to get insured. I had no idea she was uninsured until we were already drowning in medical bills. Well, the hospital stays, medication, special visits. They added up quickly and it made my head spin. I emptied my savings account within the first month just trying to keep up. I start using my credit cards for everything else just to free up as much cash as possible for her treatments. Because groceries, gas, and utility bills don't just disappear when there's a crisis. But no matter how much I paid, the bills just kept piling on. As if that was not enough, her condition worsened. And it would have been one thing if I was drowning in bills, but got to see her get better to make all of it worth it. But that wasn't what happened. Despite everything the doctors tried, she passed away a few months ago. Losing her was devastating. She was my rock, my biggest cheerleader, and losing her was like a hole in my life, and I can't even begin to describe it. But I didn't even have time to process my grief because, like I said, the expenses did not stop when she passed. The world kept moving. At the funeral cost, they hit me like a truck. The funeral home, the casket, the burial plot, the service. All of it. It all added up to thousands more than I could afford. Even without all the medical bills, it would have been a lot. But given the state of my finances by the time the funeral came around, it was a huge blow. I tried to keep it simple, but even the basics are expensive when it comes to saying goodbye to loved ones. Now I'm left with a mountain of debt. My savings are completely gone, and my credit cards are maxed out. I'm barely scraping by with the minimum payments on everything, and the interest is killing me. I've already cut back on every non-essential expense that I can think of. No more eating out, no streaming services, no extra spending at all. I've even been getting in as much overtime as I can work. But there's an hourly cap, and even if that wasn't it, it still wouldn't be enough. I've been trying to figure out my options. I've thought about taking a personal loan to consolidate the debt, but the interest rates are sky high, and I'm already barely making ends meet. Bankruptcy has, of course, crossed my mind, but it feels like an absolute last resort. I don't want to ruin my credit and carry that stigma with me forever. There's one option I keep coming back to, but it's also the one I'm most conflicted about: asking my wife Christine for help. Here's the thing. Christine and I have always kept our finances separate. When we got married 8 years ago, we agreed that our money would remain our own. We split shared expenses like rent and utilities evenly, but our savings, investments, and individual spendings are entirely separate. It wasn't a decision we made lightly. We were both really serious about it, and it was something we both felt strongly about even before we got married. We'd been clear that neither of us want to merge finances. We'd both seen enough horror stories to know better. Christine, in particular, is incredibly disciplined when it comes to money. She's been saving aggressively for years, from even before she met me, with clear goals in mind that she's never wavered from. In all these years I've known her, she wants to retire early and eventually buy a vacation home in the mountains. My goals are similar, so I've always admired her dedication and respected her boundaries when it comes to finances. Unfortunately, I'm now in a position I never thought I'd be in. I'm completely out of options, and I don't know if I can pull myself out of this hole on my own. Asking Christine for help feels like crossing a line we both agreed not to cross, and almost like a betrayal of the promises that we made to each other. I'm terrified of what it can mean for our marriage if I ask her for money. Would she see it as a betrayal of our agreement? Would she resent me for putting her in this position? Would it change the way that she looks at me? Like I'm no longer the dependable, independent partner that she married. If I'm asking her for money, would she see it as a betrayal? I don't know. At the same time, I can't ignore the fact that we're supposed to be a team. Isn't that what marriage is about? Supporting each other through the hard times. I know that if our roles were reversed, I'd do whatever I could to help her, which might sound unfair to say because our roles are not reversed, and I'm the only one with anything to gain from this right now. And I also know how much her financial independence means to her, and the last thing I want to do is jeopardize her trust in me and our marriage. I've actually been losing sleep over this decision. Part of me feels like I need to swallow my pride and worries and just ask her for help, even if it's just a loan that I can promise to pay back the moment I'm able to, maybe even with interest if that's something that'll make it more believable, that I'm not trying to take advantage of her. Another part of me worries that doing so could cause irreparable damage to our relationship. No matter how I try to word it, I don't want to come across as somebody who's just irresponsible or looking for some sort of a bailout, you know? Well, that's not what this is, I swear. I've spent my entire adult life just being extremely careful with my money, and it feels like all that effort has been erased by these past few months. I hate that I'm in this position. I did everything possible. I could not be here, yet I'm here anyways. And I hate that I'm even considering putting this burden on Christine. But if I can't turn to her, who can I turn to? She's my wife. What would you do in my situation? Is it worth risking my marriage to ask for help? Or should I keep trying to handle this on my own? Have any of you been in a similar situation? And if so, how did you handle it? Update number 1. Hey guys. So long time no see here for an update. I wanted to at least start off this update on a very positive vibe. I'm going to thank all of you who took the time to comment on my original post. Christine and I have always been a team, even if we've kept our finances separate, and that's why people get married. It's not about a piece of paper that says you're lawfully wedded. It's about being there for the person you're swearing yourself to in front of God and the law. It's about working together to build a good life. I said it in my first post, but I've realized that if our roles were reversed, I'd want her to come to me for help. I wouldn't want her to even have to think about it. There shouldn't even be a shadow of a doubt that I would help her. So I decided to have an honest conversation with her, because that's kind of the faith that I have, and it's going both ways for things to work. I waited until the weekend so we'd have time to really talk, instead of just cramming it in after work when we would both be stressed and, well, tired. Over dinner, I told her everything, from how much debt I was in because I had to drain my savings to cover my mother's medical bills to how the funeral would cost. And honestly, guys, I'm going to be real with you. It pushed me over the edge. I didn't hold anything back because I wanted her to understand just how desperate my situation had become. I also made it clear that I wasn't asking for a handout. I suggested treating it as a loan, as I mentioned in my first post, with a formal repayment plan and everything. I even offered to sign an agreement if it made her feel more comfortable to have it in black and white. Her response, it broke my heart. She told me she could not help, and she reminded me of our agreement to keep finances separate, and said she would never ask me for help with her money, so I shouldn't be asking her. She told me, "You'll have to sort it out yourself." I tried to reason with her without making it sound like a guilt trip. I assured her that it would be a one-time situation and that I would work hard to pay her back, and nothing like this would ever happen again. But she wouldn't even budge. Her reason being that she had her own financial goals to think about, and that helping me would set her back, and that's really what she'd said. Update number 2. Been a few weeks since I last posted on here. Just wanted to share with you, after my wife declined to help me, I had to sit down and reevaluate my options. It wasn't an easy process. It involved spending a lot of hours researching financial solutions, running numbers, and trying to figure out how I could dig myself out of this hole without making things even worse. In the end, the best option I could come up with was to take out a personal loan. The interest rate is definitely higher than I would have liked, but it was the only viable option to get any breathing room quickly. The loan's in place, so I've been able to cover the outstanding medical bills, the funeral expenses, and some of the debt that I accumulated on my credit cards. It's not an ideal situation by any means, and I'll be paying it off for years, but at least I don't feel like I'm drowning in bills anymore. I can actually breathe a little, knowing that I won't be hounded by creditors every other day. Financially, things are still tight, which is expected, of course. I'm keeping an extremely strict budget and getting in any extra work or projects I can manage, but it feels like I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which I didn't think was possible just a little while ago. The relief that I feel from just having a plan, even if it's a long, challenging one, has been unmeasurable, really. Emotionally, though, things are still harder than I could have expected. Honestly, Christine and I have settled back into what you might call our normal routine. We share meals, talk about our day, and manage the usual household stuff. On the surface, everything seems fine, but deep down there's a tension I can't ignore, and I think that she feels it too. I've been trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and we agreed on separate finances from the very beginning. I can't fault her for sticking to the arrangement. It's her money. That doesn't mean I haven't been feeling hurt. I came to her in one of the most vulnerable moments of my life, and she chose to prioritize her distant financial goals over helping her husband. What really gets me about this, that wasn't me asking for a gift. I made it clear that anything she gave me would be a loan with repayment terms we could agree on. I would have done everything in my power to make it right, but she wouldn't even entertain the idea for a second, and that's left a mark I can't seem to ignore. I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on what this means for our relationship. Christine, she's not a bad person. I know she works hard and that she values her independence, and I admire those qualities in her. But I can't stop thinking about what this all says about how she sees us. Aren't we supposed to be a team? In my mind, marriage is about stepping up for each other when it really counts. Her choices make me question whether we're on the same page about what that really means. Update number 3. Never in my days did I think that I would be back with an update, let alone one like this. But life threw me another curveball, this time in a way I never expected. So, a few weeks ago, I won the lottery. I know it sounds insane. I don't even play the lottery regularly. I mean, like I said, I don't like to spend even $1 on something that's not strictly necessary, but a friend of mine convinced me to buy a ticket with him one day at lunch, and I decided, why not? I didn't even check the numbers right away, because I didn't really put much stock in it. When I finally checked it, I couldn't believe I didn't win the jackpot, not millions or anything like going to retire me. But well, definitely enough to clear my debts and completely change my life. My first reaction after the disbelief and shock wore off was the overwhelming sense of relief. The thought of the last year was just lifted off my shoulder in an instant. It was magical. I mean, yeah, I'll admit I thought about how this all could have come at a better time, like when I was drowning in the hospital bills, but I was grateful nevertheless. I'm not going to be the type to blow it up on stupid things, so I started planning things off pretty much the second I got over the initial excitement. Stuff like paying off my debt, setting up investments, and even considering buying a home. What I expected, even less than winning the lottery, was my wife's reaction to it. When I told her I won, she was ecstatic for both of us. Yeah, I loved her excitement at first because I thought she was just sharing my joy. But as soon as we actually start talking about it, I realized that she assumed I would share the winnings with her, for some reason. I just brought up our financial agreement, the one that she's been so, on me about when I asked her for help not long ago, and told her that since we kept our finances separate, the lottery winnings would be mine, right? It's going to follow the same rule. Apparently, this is different, and she insisted that as my wife, she's entitled to benefit from my good fortune, even though she wasn't entitled to help out with the bad fortune I had a few months ago. That's when I lost my cool a little bit, because I couldn't just hold back the frustration and resentment I've been suppressing since then. When I was at my lowest, she turned her back on me, and she couldn't even expect me to suddenly change the rule to suit her, now that I was in a better position. It developed into a massive argument where she accused me of being pretty vindictive, and I countered by saying I was just sticking to the rules that she insisted were the most important. By the end of it, I needed some space, so I packed a to-go bag and hit the hotel just to clear my head. Update number 4. It's been almost a week since I've been on here. I've made a decision that I never, ever thought that I would be here to make, let alone announce on the internet. I'm filing for divorce from my wife of 8 years. When I left to stay at the hotel, I really thought I was going to take some time to mull things over and hopefully come to a solution that would work for the both of us. Because sometimes marriage is rough, but we weren't meant to work through things together. I'd used my time in the hotel to really think hard about whether or not my marriage was even salvageable at this point. But everything that happened made me realize that Christine and I do not see eye to eye. When I needed her the most, she chose to prioritize herself, and when I finally catch a break, she felt entitled to what was mine. Ultimately, I decided that I was really willing to take the time to work on us. Well, despite how she'd handled the entire situation from then, when I asked her for help, to when I won the lottery. Except, while I was mulling things over in private, she starts telling our friends and family about the situation, but in the least measured way possible that she could have. She painted me as this horrible, selfish husband who refused to share his good fortune with his wife. And I started getting texts and DMs from people asking why I wasn't giving Christine a share of the winnings, which I hadn't even told anyone about intentionally, because I wanted to get a little more settled with the money before I even considered if I wanted people to know about the windfall. Some of the texts I got were actually supportive and sort of nice, but mostly our friends just accused me of being unfair or even cruel, which is absurd, because those same people have always showered us in praise for being such an ideal, healthy couple. I didn't realize how easily their opinions could be flipped. It was also infuriating because these people had no idea what I've been through over the past year, because, of course, Christine didn't tell them any of that. At least, I seemed to even be touching reasonable. That was the point. I realized there was no going back to whatever my marriage had been before. The woman I married wouldn't have tried to turn people against me the way Christine was doing. Hell, the woman I thought I married wouldn't have refused to help me when I was drowning in debt in the first place. I decided to take her advice from all those months ago and, quote, sort it out myself. Update number 5. Yeah, it's been ages since I've posted anything about this marriage and divorce. In the months since the divorce has been finalized, I can officially say that Christine is no longer part of my life. I wish I could say the process was quick and painless because of how well documented everything was, but things escalated really quickly after I filed. She tried to fight for everything, especially half the lottery winnings, because apparently as my spouse she felt she was entitled to it. It was not quick and painless, but having everything documented to the extent that we did meant that our financial agreement was pretty ironclad and nothing could have turned the court against me. They ruled in my favor, that being a clean split without any division of assets, so that we walked away with nothing that wasn't already ours. The fallout was even messier than the proceedings. She was very salty about how everything went down, and, to top it off, she couldn't afford to stay in the house we rented together, so she was evicted. I don't know what happened between her and her landlady, that it got to the point of an eviction, since I actually got along quite well with the old lady. But Christine was kicked out the month after she couldn't make the rent. She tried right before the eviction to reach out to me and reconcile, trying to remind me how much I loved the house when we first moved in. She pretty much begged me to give her another chance, but I was feeling a little salty myself then after everything she put me through in court. So I just told her the same thing again, to sort it out herself.